Swaminathan, who was supposed to speak between 4:40 to 5, is right now taking stage, and he's going to speak on first semester studio. And I guess he's improvising because he had a presentation. He's speaking without his presentation. Thanks.
Sorry for butting in and taking the wrong position. A little exigency at home, mom's in the hospital, so I'll try and make it brief and not bore you. Well, I must just quickly looking through this syllabus and this constant thing we all face, especially at thesis level, how much do they know, and you have to teach them what a plan section or all the silliest mistakes. So somehow I've always felt, sharing with a lot of our friends here, first year is the greatest fun part and the most difficult also. But starting with the first year, it's like literally trying to de-school them. And having taught in a school also, I spent 3 years in Rishi Valley. I found that working with 6th standard children much easier than working with first year students. They're far more open. Sorry? Yeah, so I'll just, before I get into this thing, I'll just quickly brief you what I'd like to share with you with what my friends, we worked together on over the years. Is the first part is deschooling, and not talk about architecture, not talk the big words. And it's more difficult not to talk than to get them to express. And imagine a child in kindergarten just draws an elephant and has got a nose on it, because nose is the priority, and doesn't feel it's wrong. So why is it that when they come to first year, they want to be told, is this correct, ma'am? Is this correct, sir? It's because this whole education system marks and mugging up, ratto. So then these kids are told, now listen, you're on your own, let's see you think. Now, the whole idea is not to teach, but to share and go through experiences. So here are just a few glimpses which just be done in Dayanand Sagar recently, and there's something, not too many. I didn't have time, sorry, to assemble over the years. Let's say, for example, somebody's cast away on an island. Now we're trying to introduce concepts of placemaking and space making and scale, but let's not use any of these words. Let's see where they come from, and most of the time they'll come with SUPW, socially unproductive work. What happens in school? Sorry, socially useful and productive work. Yeah. So here was a case where there's an island and what happens with a shelter. But then comes this whole, okay, the student expresses herself, very often it's color and polychromatic. Now trying to break that polychromatic thing, get into a monochromatic thing, then just getting from this exercise where, okay, let's see how they come, it's almost childlike, not architectural, fine, let's see them express themselves in the rawest form, and then let's work from there. So then comes the next step where you convert and start looking at planes. Right or wrong, it's okay, let them make mistakes, but the same thing has started moving on, and it's converted. What if the student herself has asked, what if the same space marooned on an island, you've got different materials, but then this thing converts to something else? And then other concepts, without realizing it, concepts of scale. And then this was a fun exercise. I must thank Triveni, Sandeep and Akila now. We looked at a chessboard, where now we're looking at the syllabus talks of planes, lines, a whole lot of stuff, and doctor's clinic and architect's thing, all that requires reinterpretation. Let's dump that for a moment and let's start. So we talk about the ground plane, we know it as architects, but the students don't know it. So we take a chessboard and we start moving. Here there's some of the exercises from the chessboard. Greet the grave, she says. And so the chessboard, they convert into cubes and then start playing with this board and start working with, they don't even know the words plastic. She's come out with the word mold, and then depth. And they were given exercises right up to scale. Now looking at, now this is, she talks about the grave in this case. Each student came up with something unusual and unique. And that was the fun part. So we're talking about, we always think of the ground plane as a plinth and going up. But what if we go down, she's thought. Then thinking out of the box. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah. So this thing now again, this one exercise, we spun through 10 different variations, which went right up to a city scale also. And And keep, the other thing is a virtue which was there for us, one of my professors here, sketching as a rigorous tool. As you keep drawing, sketching, what you're modeling. So model, sketch, then the city. Now it's interesting how she's taken, again it's a very naive perspective, it's not an architectural point of view, but she's used these pictograms and she's starting to plan the city with these, the cubes. I've moved on to that. If you see the first, okay, sorry. What is that? Something has gone wrong. I think it's okay. Yeah, thank you. It's okay. Yeah, of course, she's brought in the human factor. The other thing is insisting on a human scale figure. Some of them don't do it, but the moment you put that in, of course, now with the digital camera, it's so much fun. They just click it, and then they start looking at it from, and you do Photoshop, other things happen. But let's try and keep it to sketching at the moment. But so this is, yeah. Then she looked at variations which, yeah, and then handling. Yes, now the same chess exercise, forget about cities, so if you take chessboard measurement, then we scale it up to 30 centimeters each square. You scale it up to 3 meters, you scale it up to 3 kilometers, just that unit. Now what happens when you scale it up to one thing, and then you start looking at a human intimate scale. So we don't bring in intimate, macro scale or mega scale, we just bring in these and let them discover these words for themselves. We had some cute little characters sitting on them, but she started looking at how do you arrange space. Now this can be integrated with an anthropometry exercise. Normally anthropometry is taught in the most boring, dumb way, which I agree we have to do, but Newford's architects data is full of it. But there's another exercise I'd like to quickly share with you about anthropometry. But again, it gets applied here. Again, not being conscious. The idea is not to release that information that you're doing an anthropometry exercise. By experiencing it, and then by a dialogue, we start coming to these. So the various ways, this student really explored many possibilities just with these cubes. Yeah, then comes, yeah, this again, all of us have done in so many various. Recently, Sandeep introduced the thing with just a broomstick and then it moves line, point. But these are with planes, with cards. Okay, now the early exercise you just saw, the one before, that has got converted into a purpose. So we introduce the function, let's say exhibition space. When you start in saying architect's office, all that, too much a function, which is also important for anthropometry. But let's take it at a larger, more free scale movement. So what the syllabus talks about, movement, light, scale, through the experience, and it's important to also keep drawing these as you go on. Then to bring in, they are not taught technical drawing at that level to look at perspective or projections. So that is another handicap. So in the design studio itself, we start looking at how do you project, how do you take a section. And section, we all know, is our basic language. Without the section, we just can't proceed. So the three-dimensional thing also has to be made into drawings. And then of course, a very naive thing, like you saw the children on a seesaw. Now to break, that is the next step. Each student has a certain thing. How do you break that preconceived thought? They were given a triangular side, in fact. That was also part of it. She started looking at now entrance and scale. So, in quick sketches of this, then let's compare with other projects. Then the scale again of a tower. And the cityscape again, now not with the cues, but with other things. That's this one. So, I'd like to share another project very quickly with you, which is, yeah, is the time over? No. Oh, great. Thank you. So this is right now going on in this particular semester, and for some this is another thing which very disturbing and apparent for us as architects. We start looking at, they come in with very predictable symmetrical forms. It's probably the education. You find out very often the type of schooling they come from, and they're so marks oriented and worried and wanting to be very safe. So you observe the kind of very symmetrical forms, and then breaking this, getting them to the point where they're not going to be scared. It shows their own attitude by the way they work. They're working, but it's not freeing the mind. And then breaking that further. Then this went in steps from line, point, whatever the syllabus is saying, but let's take it. Without model making, nothing works, especially in first year, I would say even at thesis level. And they want to make these perfect models, but the idea is not to make perfect models. The idea is to make quick models, where the idea does not escape, and to record that moment very fast. So the confidence starts. It's like rock climbing. You can't be static all the time. You have to keep moving. So then, now they've come in from a non-architectural world. Why bring in architecture directly? So concept of product design, products which are useful. So design is all over us, and we are always looking at it. So they come up with their own projects, what is useful to them. This is one example of this is what I wanted to share. I'm sorry there are no human figures in this, but I've tried this over time, because when I was in first year, Professor Hazra and Leo gave us this, where we all did the clay modeling exercise. But I thought most of these kids come from very affluent backgrounds, and they've rarely gone camping, or if they've gone camping, it's also superbly organized. So what if they are put into a simulated situation where they're living in a medieval age, the king has taken very unkindly to their philosophical ideas and decides to imprison the student. And it's put into a cave, but the prison warder is a kind man. He finds you're actually a good soul and you're an idealist. So he gives you a present of a mallet, a stone mallet, and a chisel. So you're in a very tight little cave. Of course it's barred, but you have to start chiseling out more space to make it more comfortable for your lifetime imprisonment. Now the very fact you say prisoner makes them a little disturbed. And one girl, I remember, can I have Wi-Fi in it? I said, you're in a medieval time when there's no... So it's fascinating how you have to even break this boundary, you know. So then comes this whole thing of what is a prisoner, then it disturbs them very deeply because nobody wants that. But we found this a very useful tool to bring up anthropometry and emotion. So what is, when you say 2.1 meters for a doorway, is it just that you can pass even if it's 1.8 or 1.5, you can always, but there is that psychological, emotional comfort. So through this exercise, whether it's thermocol, whether it's clay would be ideal, then getting them to actually draw on the tiles. They can't visualize, they just start sketching, and many of them sketching is so bad. So you have to work with scale, with measure. So drawing on the tiles of the floor, figuring out the space, then scaling it back. It's quite a comprehensive exercise, and the next step comes in making these orthogonal, linear things. So you start looking at why are rooms rectangular and how much more comfortable space you want. So this is another next step. Okay, with this I would like to, this got another 2 minutes, so I'm just going to wrap up this with this simple point. There's another exercise which works very deeply, and whatever syllabus, I think the syllabus also needs a bit of fine-tuning in the kind of things they say. But these are exercises which a teacher probably works out on his own, but the key word is an emotional coefficient. One amazing exercise is walking back into childhood, a space which made you feel good. And then you draw that space, and then you work it into an abstraction. You draw it and you make a model physically, and then you find out scales and actual textures, materials which come from your memory. And then you work an abstraction forward from this, where you don't see Venetian columns, but you see scale. You make a monochromatic model, then you work backwards and create a space out of it. And very often, as architects, we look deeply. A lot of our design features come back to very pleasant childhood memories. So with this, I would like to thank you. Bye.